Rain that hasn't seeped down to or filled groundwater and is instead moving towards rivers or lakes is called runoff. Runoff can pick up excess nutrients and sediment, which can severely degrade the quality of water. When it enters the ocean, however, runoff can decrease local oxygen levels and wreak havoc on the ecology with sediment buildup. Eutrophication is when excess nutrients cause harmful algal blooms or dead zones, tied back to runoff, as those nutrients can come from the runoff that enters bodies of water. Some real-life examples include the agriculture ponds that farm catfish, which are affected by hypoxia due to the nutrients from the food. A larger example is the cost of the USA that eutrophication harbors, reaching up to $2.2 billion every year. Overharvesting is when a renewable resource is overexploited into irrelevance, described as unsustainable rates of acquisition. For ecosystems, overharvesting can render an entire food source or predator unavailable, meaning severe depopulation or overpopulation for the other species in a food chain. An example of overharvesting was the killing of sharks worldwide after the release of Jaws, 1979. When many of them were missing from their ecosystems, their prey, mainly rays and smaller sharks, gobbled up the fish and shellfish that we humans like to eat, damaging the fishing industry in turn. Because there were less animals in that industry, people experienced worse profits than before, so therefore, by removing sharks in that area, they had inadvertently caused harm to themselves and the industry altogether, who relied on catching the smaller fish for food. Overharvesting is dangerous to the ocean due to how tight-knit the ocean is, and because of this closeness, the ocean can be devastated by the removal of a few predators or sources, chaining down to even the coral reefs that the fish live in. Because the fossil fuel industry is so large, mining for oil and gas in the ocean is not uncommon. Offshore drilling makes around 30% of crude oil production around the world, according to the EIA. Thanks to the relative stability of most offshore sites, massive oil spills are infrequent. However, when they do occur, animals and plants can become ill and die. Oil spills are incredibly expensive to clean up, and the side effects hurt industries that rely on the animals that die from it. Water contaminated by oil is dangerous to ingest or even touch, as you can easily receive respiratory and cardiac damage from the toxic chemicals within crude oil. The Deepwater Horizon spill of 2010 was an infamous accident where a British drill in the Gulf of Mexico had exploded, killing 11 people and spreading 775 million liters of oil, damaging 50% of the coral species and costing billions of dollars to fishing and recreational activity industries that relied on those waters for money. In 1969, near the shores of Santa Barbara, California, an offshore well had exploded, spreading oil along the coastline and killing thousands of birds and marine animals. This incident led to a huge environmental reforms and the creation of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in 1970. Artificial reefs are man-made structures used to nurture marine ecosystems, typically consisting of concrete constructions, old ships, or other various sunken materials intended for the environment. These reefs can attract a diverse population of organisms into living there, giving new habitats for fish and platforms for plants. Thanks to this new surface, a stronger and more biodiverse ecosystem can be created in any location in the ocean. For humans, the fish that the artificial reefs attract can create a safe spot for the fishing industry, and when deployed near the shores, artificial reefs can protect the coast from wave action by slowing down erosion. On the shores of Delaware, constructed in 2001 with over 700 cars, the Redbird Reef has allowed numerous marine animals and plants to cultivate, which not only attracts fishers, but divers, who may see the influx of species as more attractive. Seafood that are considered sustainable are often caught or farmed with barely any effects to the environment. When this is the case, sustainable seafood is often beneficial for the people who sell it, as it's a lot less expensive to do, and great for buyers, as they can enjoy the same flavors from these sustainable seafoods, while understanding that this won't be harming local ecosystems. For the oceans, the lack of overexploitation for a resource can cultivate higher biodiversity, and increase the populations of commonly caught fish, as well as make sure that the environment remains healthy. The bluefin tuna was previously on the brink of extinction in the 2000s, having been ruthlessly caught due to the high demand and low supply for the fish. In response to this, many in the United States had avoided the bluefin tuna in hopes of helping recover the populations for both the Pacific and Atlantic variants. While the Pacific bluefin tuna numbers are now far from endangered, its Atlantic cousin has yet to return to the previous numbers it once held. When companies or countries work to minimize habitat loss or work around the typical dangers of doing things that may cause the destruction of marine ecosystems, this is consideration of marine life habitats. When the ocean is being protected or only barely harmed by these people, the lack of human disruption ends up helping these areas grow, attracting more fish, which opens up to more biodiversity, which benefits the tourism and fishing industries. This trade ends up benefiting everything in the ocean, which is why this contribution is so highly sought after by many. In 1976, the Magnuson-Stevens Fishery Conservation and Management Act was passed, encouraging the prevention of overfishing, the rebuilding of overfished species, and protecting habitats that fish need to feed and breed in.